Welcome to Accelerated Math 106, Module 1.3. In this lecture video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about properties of multiplication, and will also talk about the second objective, something called the distributive property. So this module 1.3 is about multiplication with whole numbers. So right here, I'm showing y'all different ways we can write multiplications. So sometimes we can use a dot for multiplication. Sometimes we can use the parentheses or cross signs. So here are some examples here. Just be aware how we normally write multiplications throughout this class. When we're talking about properties for multiplication, it's very similar to the ones with addition. All right, such as commutative property for multiplication. Commutative property allow me to swap the order of my factors, okay, or the numbers I'm multiplying, and it will still give me the same result. Associative property allow me to multiply any two numbers first, then times the third ones, and the answer will still be the same. As you can recall, 0 was the identity for addition. Now 1 will be the identity for multiplication. All right, this is actually quite important concept here. So what I'm saying here is every number that you see is always times by 1. Okay? Every number that you see is always 1 times itself. Sometimes students say, well, what about the number is over 1? That is true when we are dealing with fraction. When we are dealing with multiplication or dealing with division. When we are dealing with multiplication, you just need to be aware that every number is always times by 1. It's called the identity property. Multiplication property of 0 or zero factor law, simply saying 0 times anything, the answer will always be 0. All right, so commutative property allow me to swap the order of my numbers. Associative property allow me to multiply any two numbers first, then times the third ones. 1 is always identity for multiplication. In other words, every number is always times by 1. And 0 times anything is always 0. All right, let's take a look at some example here. All right, as you can recall, the way we do this is looking at both sides of the equal sign. So 6 times 4, the other side is 4 times 6. So the order of my number has been swapped. So that will be commutative property. All right. 0 times any number is equal to 0. That will be multiplication property of 0. All right. 1 is the identity. So every number is always times by 1. So that's called the identity property. Multiplicative identity. All right. Let's see. Left side, 7 times 3 times 2. The other side is also 7 times 3 times 2. So the order has not been swapped. So if you look at the left side, it's 3 times 2 first. But the right side is 7 times 3 first. So who I multiply first is changing on both sides. So that tells me it's going to be associative property. So left side, I do 3 times 2 first. The right side, I can do 7 times 3 first. Very powerful technique. It allowed me to, very powerful property. It allowed me to multiply any two numbers first. That actually made my arithmetic easier, okay, when we multiply. I'm going to go ahead and introduce the objective B, something called the distributive property. All right. Distributive property says for any real number A and B, which I meant to talk about this word back in very first video. Real numbers. Maybe I can pull it back up. Real numbers are numbers that's on the number line, such as your integers. Integers are positive and negative whole numbers. Right now we are dealing with positive numbers. Oh, it's not on here, but it's on your handout. All right. Fractions is also a real number, and we also have decimals. So our first three module is dealing with whole numbers, fractions, and decimals. So for any real number A, B, and C, okay, there can be any type, any one of those three real numbers. A times parenthesis B plus C. What I can do is to say A times B, which will give me AB, and then I can say A times positive C, which will give me positive AC. So for this example, if I want to use distributive property to do this, we will say 5 times 6, which is 30. And then 5 times positive 4. I'm calling a positive right now because that's eventually where we headed to, which will give me positive 20 or plus 20. So my answer will be 50. Now, some students say, well, Mr. Chen, can I just say 6 plus 4 first, do what's inside the parenthesis first? Sure, you can. So that will be 5 times 10, which will still give you 50. Okay, but I want to use this opportunity to go ahead and introduce something called the distributive property. Okay, we do this quite a lot in Module 8. All right, that will conclude this lecture video on the properties with multiplication. Thank you for watching.